The British sail their fleet in. They're 2 miles out. And the first day of fighting, Fort McHenry survives over 6 hours of continual bombardment from those British ships. Okay, they survived 6 hours of that. 6 hours, incredible. Okay, 6 hours. Well, the Americans got very lucky at Fort McHenry that first day because there was serious weakness in the fort that was hit by a British cannonball. What would be the weakness in a fort if a cannonball hit it?
If they hit more powder?
The powder magazine. Very good. So during that first day, the Americans were very lucky. What happened is a British cannonball landed in the fort directly on the powder magazine. Now, it was estimated that there were about 30,000 pounds of black powder stored in barrels in that powder magazine. Now, what do you know about a cannonball? What do you know about a cannonball these days? What's a cannonball look like? It looks like a bowling ball, and it even has one hole in it. What's in the hole? A fuse. So is it possible that a cannonball could be shot and the fuse not go off and burn out? It happens a lot. Well, what happened, just a miracle, this cannonball hits this powder magazine and the fuse fails to ignite and the cannonball fails to explode. I'm telling you right now, if that goes as planned by the British, there is no Fort McHenry, because that 30,000 pounds of gunpowder with the explosion of that cannonball is going to be the end of it. There's no Star-Spangled Banner. Our whole life has changed over one little thing. That's the great thing about stories of American history, is one little thing changes history. A fuse changes history. Well, Commander Armistead witnesses this cannonball strike the powder magazine and not go off. He is just, I mean, can you imagine your relief and you're going, oh my God. Well, what he does, he then orders his men to move those barrels of black powder under the fort's rear walls where they'll be protected. So they survive a near disaster when this cannonball hits the powder magazine, 30,000 pounds of gunpowder stored in barrels, and it doesn't go off. And he's going, oh my God, we got to fix this before we have another one hit. And so he ordered his men to take all of those barrels of gunpowder and put them under the fort's rear walls. Well, think about this. You're the British commander. You've been throwing cannonballs into Fort McHenry for 6 hours and really haven't gained anything. Why haven't you really gained anything, do you think? You're shooting at your elk, Branson, at 500 yards. And even though your bullet will go 500 yards, you're really frustrated because those elk aren't falling over dead, right? Maybe not accurate, but not, maybe the bullet hit the elk. This is really an exaggeration. But it didn't go in very far. It wasn't a lethal shot, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to get closer. And that's what the British commander did. He was so frustrated in the lack of damage, because when these cannonballs are hitting from 2 miles, are some of them maybe not getting there, or they're not doing much damage? He gets frustrated, so he orders the bombing ships to move closer to Fort McHenry so when those cannonballs hit, they will administer more damage. So they get within less than 1.5 miles in from the fort, which tells us what, Cody? That we can now hit them with our cannons. So this British commander is taking a chance that he can get in closer and fire cannons to destroy Fort McHenry before they can really destroy his ships. That's kind of what he's thinking. So these British ships are now in the range of cannon fire from Fort McHenry. Well, we end up hitting and destroying 2 of the 5 British warships, the Devastation and the Volcano. 2 of those British warships that were moved in closer within range of these French naval cannons, which are very accurate at 1.5 miles, take out 2 British ships. the devastation, and the volcano. And so what do the British ships do? They go back to that 2-mile barrier. Okay? So they come in and make an effort, but because of the accuracy of the American cannons, that are actually French cannons, the devastation and volcano are destroyed, and the British are now forced to retreat back to the 2-mile barrier. Well, what's the British commander going to do now to try to instill more damage to the American fort from 2 miles? Close. He's going to what they call double fire at Fort McHenry. He's going to fire cannonballs and big Congreve rockets. Okay? So the British commander, who's back at 2 miles, decides he's going to what they call double fire in retaliation for the sinking of those 2 British ships by launching both cannonballs and Congreve rockets.
Where on the map?
This is in Baltimore, right in this area here. Here's Baltimore. So they sailed right up Chesapeake Bay, and this battle is happening right here. Good question.
They could get a map.
Well, they could have, but we'll see what happens. Okay? Remember, we're kind of short, right? We're short of people. So, now listen, I just want you to listen to this and not write anything down for just a second. If you want to write it down, you can get it off the video. So, double fire was the launching of both cannonballs and Congreve rockets at Fort McHenry. So, many of these cannonballs that were shot burst in midair, and the Congreve rockets lit up the sky. And who witnesses all this? Francis Scott Key, who watches the rockets' red glare and bombs bursting in air. He's witnessing this. No. Think about this. So many cannonballs burst in midair. These Congreve rockets are lighting up the sky. So he witnesses from that lead ship, he witnesses the rockets' red glare, the Congreve rockets' red glare, and the bombs bursting in air, these cannonballs. Now, as Fort McHenry endures the British siege for another 19 hours, Francis Scott Key expects to wake up that next morning seeing the British flag flying on top of Fort McHenry. He's watching this. He's watching these guys double fire cannonballs and Congreve rockets. He's seeing the rockets' red glare and the bombs bursting in air. And he's watching this, and it goes on for 19 hours. And he finally has to get some sleep, and he fully expects to wake up the next morning and see Fort McHenry with the British flag flying on top of it. Yes, Donovan?
Did you write this on?
Just a second. We're going to get to that. Good question. Well, you take the 19 that occurred and the 6 prior. So after the 25 hours of continual bombardment, what Francis Scott Key witnesses when he wakes up is the American flag still proudly flying over Fort McHenry. He doesn't expect that. He expects to wake up and see a British flag, but he doesn't. He sees an American flag, and he can't believe it. Well, why is the British flag not flying? Because after bombing them for 25 hours, the British had come to the conclusion that we can't breach this fort. We cannot destroy this fort. So what did they do? Left. They left. So the reason why the British flag was not flying over Fort McHenry that morning when Francis Scott Key took a look is because they had become convinced after 24 hours of bombardment that they could not breach Fort McHenry, and they simply left.
So what about Francis Scott Key?
We're going to get to that. You're good. Keep in there. I like your attention. So the city of Baltimore is saved, right? Because they had to take Fort McHenry. Yes?
Wait, was it 25 hours or 24 hours?
25. 19 and then 6.
Okay.
25. Okay? Now, here's the answer to your question. On board the Reading on board of the retreating British warship is Francis Scott Key. And he's writing down everything that he had in his mind that he witnessed during that bombardment. The rocket's red glare, the bombs, he's just writing all this down. Right. Okay? So on board the retreating British warship, Francis Scott Key is simply writing down everything in his mind that he had witnessed during this ordeal, this 25 hours of bombardment, especially the last 19 when they were double firing. Well, he is freed by the British, as promised, along with his client, and he retires to a hotel room in Baltimore. So they free him like they said they would, even though they didn't win the Battle of Baltimore. They freed him, and he retires, which means he goes and rests in a hotel room in Baltimore. And while he's in his hotel room, he starts to put his thoughts together, and then he started to write them down in order, kind of what he remembers. Well, his thoughts and remembrances from his notes of the events of Fort McHenry result in what we know as the American Star-Spangled Banner. So, if we look at this short here, here's what he writes down to summarize all of his notes from that evening. "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming." You see the question mark there? The first statement of the national anthem is a question. Did you know that? He says, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming." He's asking if you can see that. It's a question. What are ramparts? Anybody know what ramparts are he's talking about? Those are those mountains of defense that they dig around a battle site, mounds of dirt. Those are called ramparts. Okay, then he says, "And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?" Again, that's a question. The whole Star-Spangled Banner is a question of whether you saw that. Do you get that? So if you go to the volleyball game tonight and we're going to sing the national anthem, you should have a lot more insight than the person that wasn't in this class today on what this thing means and where it came from. The whole Star-Spangled Banner is a question. Did you know that? When you go home tonight, this is why I get goosebumps. This is why I love teaching. You guys are going to go home tonight and all of you are going to know certainly something you didn't know before about the Star-Spangled Banner. So I'm hoping that when you listen to that from now and maybe till the rest of your life, you will know where it came from and what it means, and it's in the form of a question. Now I'm going to ask a question off the top here. Do you really think that these NFL players that kneel during the national anthem have one damn clue of what this banner came from, where it originated, and what it means? Do you think any of them know that the Star-Spangled Banner is in the form of a question? None of them don't. Why don't even know the words? These guys that kneel don't know the history behind it. If they do know the history behind it, this is my point, if they do know the history behind it, and they really are dedicated to their cause, I don't mind too much that they kneel. But I can tell you right now, they have no clue. They know way less than you do right here today about the national anthem. Now here's something kind of interesting. The Star-Spangled Banner did not become the national anthem until 1931. So when we talking about this, what was the date on this? 1814. Not until 1931, more than 100 years later, did the Star-Spangled Banner become our national anthem. Do you understand the difference between the Star-Spangled, please stand for the national anthem. That's the anthem of our nation. But the name of it is the Star-Spangled Banner. So I really should say tonight, please remove your headgear and stand for the playing of our Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem, because that's what it is. The name of it is the Star-Spangled Banner. It is our national anthem. And it does not become a national anthem until 1931. How does it become our national anthem? 1931. How does it become that? What makes it officially our national anthem? Who has to say it does? What? Not the president, but Congress. So in 1931, Congress passed a law that officially made the song the national anthem of the United States of America. Now, I am pleased to give you a little bit of a break from notes today, and I'm going to show you a video. Now listen to me carefully. I really want you to take this video to heart, because it talks about this. But you know what it starts with? It starts with teaching people. Has anybody in here, by the way, ever sang the national anthem of the Star-Spangled Banner together? We'll have girls do it tonight. I wonder if they'll know the meaning. But my point is, they actually coach people up to sing this correctly, to emphasize the question. There's a guy that they pay him only to coach people to sing the national anthem. So, now, a couple things before we start. You ever seen the flag? It's all torn up. Why is it torn up? You'd think so. Not true. It's really kind of an interesting story. That's part of this whole thing. So I want to show you this. We probably won't finish it today. We'll watch the first part of it today and the second part tomorrow. But I really want you to key into this, because it starts out with a voice coach teaching a young lady how to sing the national anthem properly according to the way it was written. It's a pretty cool story. So anyway, that's what we'll do here.